Thanks for sharing your story. I think very interesting that you said in the beginning you did not come from a computer science background and then you had to learn programming languages along the way. And in fact, looking at your current profile, your current blog, for example, you associate yourself as someone who can use multiple languages, or what people call polyglot developers these days. So it's very interesting, like how did you achieve that? Because there are so many developers who wants to be polyglot, but probably there are challenges, right? Learning new languages
Mhm.
probably not so easy for some of them. So maybe we'll just go through that journey together with you
Yeah.
about being a polyglot developer. So first of all, how do you actually overcome the challenge of learning multiple languages?
Yeah, before that, I think most people in tech, especially programmers, I think they're polyglot. It's just that we don't acknowledge it that way because I'm pretty sure it will be hard to find someone who only works in one language, right? Every programmer in their career path would have worked with at least two, three languages. It's just that they're comfortable with one, and so they just call themselves as a Java or JavaScript engineer, but they would always end up working with few other things, at least like some scripting with some language or something like that. So most of us do that. I think the only difference is I predominantly try to do that, like consciously try to keep switching languages, and I don't have preferences in terms of, hey, this is the language I would do everything in kind of thing. I try to choose a language based on the use case and or the purpose. So I think that probably is the only difference, and I'm probably comfortable with doing that. I know I can be equally productive in these languages. I think that's the only difference. I don't think it's that difficult. Of course, it takes a little bit getting used to in the beginning because when I started out, as I mentioned, I did a few languages in the beginning, but I never used them frequently. So only languages I frequently used were Java and JavaScript. And then I started doing code in Go and Scala and Groovy and these kind of things. I didn't stick too much with Scala or Groovy. I did a lot with Go. And then I started doing stuff with Rust. So I figured, okay, I can do multiple languages and I can pick up more languages easily once I start doing more languages. So it's like a chain reaction, right? So once I learned Go, it was easy for me to pick up another language. And once I learned Rust, then I started looking into something for C Sharp. Once you know 4 or 5 languages, it's quite easy because you start seeing patterns. Like if you know Java, C Sharp is quite easy to pick up. It's quite similar. All these modern languages, they have something or the other from the other. And all these languages are copying each other. They are getting features from one to another. So now they are so homogenized that it's not like learning something entirely from scratch. It's more like looking at a language and seeing, hey, okay, how much of this is similar to the ones that I already know, how much is new, and what is the part that I need to learn. So that's my approach. My advice for people who would like to be comfortable in multiple languages would be to learn the base concepts of programming itself. So be good in those, like learn those properly, then learn the language semantics, not syntax. I never learned language syntax because I think now we have enough tools and technology around us where we actually don't have to by heart a language's syntax. Every IDE will help you with the syntax. You don't have to learn that. So I focus more on the semantics and the concepts that the language offers. For example, when I was learning Rust, I was more interested in learning about the unique memory management that Rust does and the features that Rust have, which is not found in the other languages I knew. So those were the areas I focused on because for the other part, I don't have to learn how to write a for loop. It's a for loop. The syntax will differ. That's it. Other than that, it's for loop. So those kind of things you can just reuse. You just rely on your IDE for syntax. In the beginning, it would be a slightly steep learning curve, but once you start doing that, you will notice that okay, it's becoming easier and easier. It's like practice. It becomes easier, and after a few languages, I'm pretty sure you can pick up another language in a week.
So thanks for sharing that tips. I like the way that you mentioned that focus on the language semantics, not syntax. And
Yeah,
also the base concept programming. I think almost any language would still apply, except maybe few
yeah.
paradigm difference. But in the first place, do you think that everyone should go into this polyglot mindset? Because is it advantageous in your point of view that we have to master a few programming languages?
Again, it would be hard to say that this is the silver bullet kind of thing. But as a person who has been in the industry for over a decade and who is quite interested in technology trends and someone who follow and write about technology trends, one thing I have observed is that entire world is becoming more and more digitalized, and COVID has helped fasten that. The world is digitalized, and every company wants to be an IT company. It's unavoidable that in future, maybe 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, IT is already the biggest industry in terms of job market and all those things, but it's going to keep on expanding. There's going to be more rapid innovations, and the amount of innovations is going to double. It's going to double and it's going to go exponential. It would be hard to keep up with stuff first. So if you are someone who is only focusing on one thing, like a language or a particular framework, it would be easy to be in a position where you're not required anymore. because you never know when something new comes up and destroys something which was already there. I mean, we never expected something like Kubernetes to be this widespread, right? Like when we were doing enterprise servers and these kind of things. So those kind of sudden technological innovations could wipe out something that you were focusing on. So if that happens, and if you are not a generalist, then it might be difficult for you to move on, get adapted, and find a new job and these kind of things. I'm not saying it is impossible. Of course, it would be possible to learn something new and move, but that would put you in a much harder position and your options would be much more constrained. But if you're a polyglot developer or a generalist, I'm a generalist, polyglot late. So if you're a generalist and if you're good in multiple things, then you have a lot of options. You have a lot of career paths to choose from. Today, I don't think it matters to be an expert in just one thing. I don't think it matters as much as it used to be. So if you are good at few things, even if you're not an expert in just one thing, but good at few things, I think that is still quite valuable. I found it quite advantageous because I have multiple paths to choose from. I always have multiple options. Even if I look for a job, I have multiple options I could take because you also gather this experience in these multiple things. But on the other side, it's also not for everyone, I would say. Matches with my personality probably, but doesn't mean that it will match with everyone. Probably I have a little bit of ADHD, so it goes well with this, but probably not for everyone. So I can't just say that, hey, this is the way, but this is also a good way. It didn't used to be considered a good way because I know that when I started out my career, everyone would give me advice that, hey, focus on one thing, learn one language, learn these frameworks and be good at that. Don't try to do everything. That is wrong, I would say. This is also a very valid career path. I know a lot of people who are generalists, polyglots, who are doing really good. So if you think that this is your cup of tea, that this is the things that you want to do, and if you get bored easily of doing one thing, then yeah, this is a perfectly valid path as well.